So Apple finally updates the iMac. Matt, you have an iMac. What do you think of it?
It doesn't work. I'm not happy with it at all.
Oh no. What do you mean? Okay, what don't how long did it last? Did you
Yeah,
like it when it was working?
it lasted, let's see, I bought it at the beginning of 2013. So it lasted 5.5 years. And then it just stopped working about November. Like it would crash, it would hang, all kinds of problems. I took it in to get checked and they said, "Oh, your hard drive went." Now, my
Oh,
iMac is the one that has a hybrid drive. So
yeah.
it had a small SSD and then it had an actual like magnetic drive. And they
Right.
said it was the magnetic drive that went. So I spent $400 and they replaced the magnetic drive. And the problem with these iMacs is they're all glued together. And so it's not just a matter of unscrewing it. You've got to get rid of the glue and peel it back without breaking the screen. So I was like, you know what? My last iMac, I opened it up and I put in that hard drive. I put in a terabyte and it was great. But this one, no, I'm sending it out to be professionally done. So they put a new hard drive in, and within 3 weeks, it started hanging and crashing again.
After you paid $400 for
After
it?
I paid 400, so I brought it back
Ah.
in under warranty, and they just reinstalled the software, and sure, again, within 3 weeks, it started crashing again, and now it won't even turn on. And so the warranty of that repair is gone. So I spent $400 for a brand new hard drive, and it won't even turn on. So I don't know what to do. And I was kind of surprised because Apple's known for the quality of its devices. Now you could argue, hey, you got 5.5 years out of a device.
That's
Well,
pretty good for an Apple device.
yeah, I paid 2 grand for it though. So and you can buy the same year, like the same model as the one I have right now for about $1,000 used.
Oh, it held up.
So, well, it's an asset that would be worth $1,000 if it worked, but I just
Here's what
spent
you do.
400 and it
Here's
doesn't.
here's what you do, Matt. You take
Yeah.
that asset right on down to the place where you donate, whatever it's called in Canada, Goodwill,
Yeah.
and you write it off on your taxes for $1,000. That's
I
how
don't
you do
know
it.
if we can do that in Canada. I know you
Really?
can do that. Yeah, you can do that with clothing and all kinds of stuff down in the States, but I haven't seen anywhere where I could write off charitable donations such as like charitable donations in kind. And you have to get a receipt back
Yep.
that says, "Hey, I donated so much in clothing, in computers, and things like that." And um, nobody does that here, so I don't think it's possible, but it's something to
Really?
look into.
I sure did it here. So Matt actually gave me his iMac
The
maybe
first
about
one, yeah,
4 years ago for Christmas, maybe longer than that.
yeah, is when I got
And
this new one. Yeah.
it was a 2006 iMac, and computers are holding their own lately. I mean, processing power really hasn't gone up that much. You can get higher cores, more RAM, but really the exponential curve hasn't really gone as fast as it has in the past. So it worked really well for me. The problem that I ran into with your old iMac from
Hmm.
2006 wasn't the speed. I actually just installed Windows 10 on it, and it seemed to be pretty zippy. The problem that I found with it was that it was only 32 bits processor. So when I was making games for the iPhone, for Android, everybody knows they've all switched to 64-bit systems now,
Yep.
and I just couldn't compile it. I couldn't my processor couldn't make the games anymore for it. And even when I would try to run games on Steam, it would say, your computer's only 32-bit, even though it's pretty fast. It can't run it anymore because everything switched over. That's why I donated it, not because I didn't love the Christmas gift. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's interesting. I like the point that you made that really our computing power hasn't really gone as exponential as it used to be. Technically, you might be able to look at it and see the curve, and they'd say, well, actually, it's calculating so much more because it's in 64-bit and blah, blah, blah.
And
But
all the cores and Moore's law, but
right.
really, if you're on a website, it's, you know,
Well, that's the point I want to make is that the majority of what we do now doesn't require crazy processing. The only thing that really does these days tends to be on the graphics side of things. So
Yes.
virtual reality and 4K, now they're talking about 8K monitors, right? That's where your processing power is. It's all about rendering all that graphics or Bitcoin mining or, whatever e-currency you're trying to mine. That's where all the processing is happening.
And for us, the reason why we want the powerful computers is because when we make these YouTube videos, crunching a 4K video only takes about 40 minutes on a fast computer. On that old 2006 iMac, it would have taken days. So,
Days and days.
yeah, if you're a YouTube creator, content creator,
Yeah.
and you're doing any kind of video, you definitely want a faster processor. Or if you're coding games, compiling, or like you said, Bitcoin mining, you
Yeah.
want that faster processor. But if you're just like your mom and you're emailing and listening to Spotify, you can use a 10-year-old computer for sure.
And so artificial intelligence, speech recognition, a lot of this stuff is being done over the air now.
Yes.
So it's like if I speak to Google or Siri or Alexa, it takes the sound bites and processes that in some big server farm elsewhere and processes it super fast and then gets it back to me. And so you pay a premium for your software and your hardware that kind of goes into all those costs. But then you don't need your phone to be crunching all that information or your computer to be crunching that information.
And that's really the way of the future. And we actually have a really exciting announcement from Google today about that, about gaming. And so
Yes,
keep listening to the podcast. In the
we'll get
meantime,
there.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about the iMac.
Yes.
What did you think about the setup? Like personally, I like having a laptop because I can throw it in my bag, I can take it to work, I can use
Yeah.
it on my desk. I can watch Netflix in bed with it. I can move it over to the living room and watch TV in the background and eat something next to it. It's very portable, very convenient. But what did you think about the iMac being stuck in one place? Did you like it? Did you like the bigger screen?
Yeah, I'm split on it. So first of all, love the big screen. The iMac screens, when I bought mine in 2013, they were the best. I mean, you could buy perhaps a higher quality monitor, but you it was really the best all-in-one solution. In fact, they were the first all-in-one solution. So that was fantastic. Loved it. I also liked how you had this giant monitor that everything was included, and I had this tiny little office space. So I have this little cupboard that I kept my computer in, but I also had all my peripherals that were plugged into it. So I had my printer, I had my external hard drive, and then I had tons of filing that had to do with my business and my taxes, and then I could just close it all up and away it goes. So if you want a more permanent station, it was fantastic. But you're right, it's not super mobile. But it was way more mobile as an iMac, an all-in-one solution, than, say, having a tower and then your monitor and your keyboard and everything separate. So about once a year, maybe not quite that much, I would take my entire iMac and then go to a LAN party if anybody still does that.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. And it was great because I was just going to my neighbor's place and it was huge, but I have a duffel bag that I could just nestle it in and protect it. And I just slung it over my shoulder and off I went. And everybody else had tiny little laptops they're gaming on, like Left 4 Dead 2 on. And then I had this giant monitor where I was like,
Nice.
oh, as I would, take them out. So it was nice that way, but I think you're right. I prefer a setup that I have right now at work where I have a docked laptop.
Oh yeah.
And then I use my laptop screen as a reference screen. So I actually do an above and below setup where I have my laptop open and I type on the keyboard. Lots of people with docked laptops have separate keyboards. But in
Right.
this case, I'll type on the laptop keyboard, I'll have my reference screen, and then above it I have a larger monitor where I'll have my spreadsheets and Gantt charts and all kinds of things that I'm working on. And I prefer that because if I need to go, unplug, yoink, off I go with just the laptop.
Perfect. Very convenient. Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about the new features with the new iMac today. So both the 21 inch and the 27 inch are updated. So the actual design is actually the exact same. So it looks the same, but the 21 inch now has 6 cores and it's the 8th generation Intel CPU.
Hmm.
And then the 27 inch also has 6 cores, and you can go all the way up to 3.6 gigahertz or a ninth generation 8 core Intel i9 CPU, which is insanely fast.
Yes. And
So I get,
insanely expensive.
well, yes, and we'll get there. I guess the big news is that arguably both sizes now offer high-end workstation class Vega-graphics options this time. So I don't know if you've heard of the Vega-graphics card.
I
It's
haven't.
pretty cool. One frustrating thing about buying laptops, especially Apple laptops, is that for the longest time it always had the embedded CPU, GPU, so it didn't have its own graphics processing unit on it, and that meant that graphics were compromised. So last year, Apple finally started offering this Vega graphics card that's separate from the CPU. And so it's got a lot more RAM, a lot more power horsepower to do all kinds of gaming, 3D gaming, but it's only offered on the big 15-inch laptop. This is the big new feature this year, is that that Vega graphics card is now offered for the iMac, where it's always been the two-in-one CPU, GPU in the past. What people don't know about these iMacs is that basically they're just laptops with a big screen.
With a big screen,
Yeah,
yes.
this isn't the Mac Pro with, a really fast processor, a separate really fast video card for gaming and virtual reality. These iMacs are basically just a laptop with a big screen, and that's it.
So, do you think this Vega chip is capable of, say, VR or 4K, 8K monitors that are coming out? Like, it always seems that Apple is now playing catch up, and it's honestly the reason why I'm not even looking at Apple when I replace my computer.
Yeah. Well, what I got from the information from their website is they say it's going to be a 50% performance improvement over the previous Radeon cards that were in them in the past. So that's good news. Can it handle full VR? I'm not sure, but the fact that it's a separate card in a laptop situation is great news in my opinion.
For swappability and upgradability, but they're not very upgradable when they're glued together, right? And
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't think you'd be able to swap it out or upgrade it, but the fact that it's its own mind and its own brain is
yeah,
actually good even too if you're into Bitcoin mining, because the faster your graphics card, you can actually harness that. Just the way how the chips are built and the way how their code is, you can mine a lot faster. So I wanted to talk about the cost now.
sure, let's
Believe
do
it or
it.
not, if you max everything out in American dollars, it's $16,000 for the
Oh
beefiest
my goodness,
iMac. And
$16,000.
remember, we're not talking about a professional workstation here. We're talking about laptop-based chips inside of this.
Yeah.
But really, what the most expensive thing is updating your RAM. So you can actually pay $5,000 to upgrade your RAM from 32 gigabytes to 256. Now that's insane.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about RAM. Most people will never need more than 16 gigabytes of RAM to play video games at this point in 2019. 32 to 64 gigs will take care of most video editing and 3D modeling tasks. So with 256 gigs of RAM, you could do things like artificial intelligence processing, or even you could lease your computing power to other people over the internet. Um, so it's funny. I remember Bill Gates when we were young. He said nobody would need anything more than 16K of RAM back then, right?
Yes.
And now
Yes.
that's laughable. I mean, because in his mind, he was thinking, oh, we're only going to need it for word processing, for
Yeah.
really simple games. But when you get stuck in that mindset, you don't think of the potential of the future.
Hmm.
And so this article that I read, did state nobody needs more than 16 to 64 gigabytes of RAM at this point. In 10 years, I think we're gonna laugh. You'll
We're gonna
listen to
laugh
this
at that. Yeah.
and
Our
you'll see.
phones are gonna be doing that easy.
I bet in 10 years our phones are gonna have more than 256 gigabytes of RAM,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be so fast. Other things that are expensive here, if you want to do a better video card, you can pay another $700 for the 16 gigabyte Radeon video card.
Okay, so that should handle VR, but how much do you pay for that?
$700 more. But I mean, the nice thing is it's not that bulky box. I
Yeah.
hated that. I hated that last year when they were like, well, you bought your MacBook Pro and you want to do some 3D stuff. Here's this weird box
Box.
that you can attach to your
Yeah.
computer. No, just freaking put it inside the computer in the
Put it in
first
the
place.
computer.
And
Everybody else does.
I'll pay $700. I just don't want a box on my desk. I bought a laptop for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So that's nice. You can pay the $700 and have that inside. Really, what this boils down to, though, is it's a lot of money. Here's the other thing. I
Yeah.
don't think you're going to want to spend $16,000 on this computer
No.
because even if you get the fastest processor, the most RAM, you get the best video card in here, I get the feeling, and Apple always says no, I get the feeling that one day they are going to bend and they're going to have a freaking touch screen. And when they update their operating system so that it works with all Apple iPhone games and iPhone apps,
Yeah.
and all these new things come with the touch screen, they're going to turn around and say, oh, this is our new thing, where Windows has been doing it forever. You're going to be stuck with a $16,000 computer that you can't even touch.
No touchscreen. Yeah. And
That's
you're
my
gonna be using your little mouse paddy thing where you're touching and trying to play Angry Birds on your $16,000 computer.
Exactly. Okay, I have one more thing to say. So I was
Yeah.
scrolling through Reddit today because I was interested in this computer. I think it's a
Yeah.
good looking computer, and I was like, what do people think on the internet? The hard drive sucks.
Really?
So here's the thing, it's still a physical hard drive.
Yeah.
It might be a hybrid like you had in yours, but
Mhm.
it's not an SSD hard drive.
It's not.
The thing about SSD hard drives, they make at least Apple so much faster.
Yes.
This new laptop that I have has an SSD and it boots up in like 3 seconds from scratch.
Yeah.
And it shuts down. It does everything so fast, moves files, deletes files. Everything is almost instant. It doesn't really have a lot to do with the computing power, not a whole lot to do with the RAM. It has to do with the fact that my hard drive's an SSD. Well,
Yes.
these iMacs don't even come with that as a baseline option. So if you're going to buy it, please update it to the SSD, and it's going to be much more expensive.
Wow, that's crazy. So, um, I used to be the biggest Apple fanboy. Like I've had two iMacs. I spent $2,000 in 2013 on an iMac. And I think I spent that much on the one that you got as well. And I used to get every iPhone when it came out. But this is just too expensive. And I know we're talking about the most expensive one, but really, Dan, $700 to get a 16 gigabyte Radeon video card? Really?
I
That
mean, be spending $700 for the computer. I mean,
yeah.
this is the margin on these things is ridiculous. They're making so much money off of you because you want to be that person sipping on your latte in downtown
Ooh,
LA. Yeah, it's
with your
showing off
iMac.
your iMac.
So I think that's the biggest problem. And if you look at Apple's numbers, their iMac sales have stalled and dropped significantly. And I think it's partially because of the same thing you pointed out earlier. People just prefer a mobile medium. And the computer station is going away, even in the work field. I can't even remember the last time I had a tower at work. It's always been a laptop with a dock for at least 10 years. A-
Really?
And so that's the same thing with people's personal computers. The only reason why I liked having the iMac at home is it was that massive screen and it's great for gaming. So if I was gaming on my iMac, I wanted that big screen. But really, get a monitor and and plug it in, right?
Right.
So, and also what's fascinating is it seemed like the all-in-ones were where everything was going. So after the iMac got so popular, then you had Lenovo was copying the
Dell had
all-in-one.
one. Yeah.
Dell and Microsoft has now put out, they've got a Surface all-in-one version as well that's a big
I
one.
bet
And
you can touch the screen.
Oh, you can touch the
Yeah.
screen and you can draw all over it. So it was kind of the direction that things were going. But then when VR became popular and people were buying rigs and customizing rigs for virtual reality, all of a sudden the tower came back. Because, as we mentioned earlier, you don't need a screaming awesome latest and greatest processor. If you can upgrade your RAM, if you can upgrade your video card, all of a sudden you're playing the latest, greatest games and you got VR going on. And so it seems now we're back to towers because it's customizable. You can swap parts in and out. At least that's my observation. What have you seen?